Alien Resurrection is a title that seems to have been kept under wraps for an absolute age. Every time we think it's about to appear, the release date slips and we hear no more for several months or so. But now, in the capable hands of award-winning developers Argonauts, this eagerly anticipated blockbuster is now on the horizon. PSI talks exclusively to Argonaut Supremo Jez San and his production team about this exciting title, the now legendary delays, and their hopes for its future.
Titles we've made in the past include Star Fox for Nintendo. I personally developed Star Glider on the Amiga and Atari computers. We've done Croc and Croc 2. Now we've done Alien Resurrection and Red Dog on the Dreamcast.
This title is unique in the sense it'll give you the first-person view, such as Medal of Honor and Quake do on the PlayStation. Then throw in elements of fear that you get from Silent Hill and the Resident Evil series. The gameplay, okay, how it'll play, it's going to give you the, like I say, a first-person perspective, so you're going to be actually seeing out of the eyes of the characters, and you're going to be aboard the ship, and a lot of the scenery is based off the sets, the actual sets in the movie. It creates quite an atmosphere I've never seen before.
For the past 3 years we have struggled in trying to live up to that, to make something scary. We could quite easily have turned out a game that was just a game. So we have redesigned, rebuilt, and we think we have delivered a scary title.
I think Aliens is a great title to work with. It's just the whole Aliens atmosphere just cries out for a game, so I don't think it's really difficult to have a great Alien game.
You know, this is a shoot 'em up, so we're looking to maybe a 15+. But even with that, it does have its problems of different countries that you're trying to serve, like Germany and other countries. The censorship is fairly tough. Well, we've just finished Red Dog on Dreamcast for Sega, also Croc Game Boy. Aliens will follow as the next title. We've also started 3 new projects in the company, but I can't talk about them.
I think it's a very good format, but it is an extremely complex piece of hardware, which makes it difficult to get the best out of it. And you can see that from the first games. They certainly are a bit compromised in their visual quality. But we expect after a year or 2 of developing on the system, we expect the games to be really good. We'll have to talk to Fox about that. I personally would love to do it, but I don't know that it's on the cards.
For years, Action Replay CDX has been securely stored away in an unknown secret location, feared by every evil character and creature ever seen on the PlayStation. They prayed it would never be unleashed. Unfortunately for them, their prayers weren't answered. CDX is out. Packed full with the greatest game codes for infinite health, lives and ammo, extra weapons, vehicles and characters, CDX delivers the power to blow your games wide open. CDX comes loaded with thousands of codes for hundreds of games and is easily updatable with new codes as they become available. You can even create your own codes with the powerful code generator function. Visit CodeJunkies.com, the only official CDX site, where you'll find all the latest CDX codes and underground news stories, the ultimate Code Junkies site for clued-up gamers. Or call the Code Junkies hotline, where you can get your hands on the latest codes, up-to-the-minute chart and new release information, and enter the Code Junkies weekly competition. CDX isn't just a cheat code cartridge, it's a way of life. PSI viewers can now taste the power of CDX for themselves with PSI's very own selection of exclusive Colin McRae Rally 2 and Colin McRae Rally cheat codes courtesy of Code Junkies. Choose from Enable Turbo Boost mode, Enable Mirror Tracks mode, or even Enable Reduced Gravity mode. Ready to play? PSI, in association with Code Junkies, brings you Cheats in Action, with real-life footage of the most incredible gaming situations ever seen on a PlayStation. Join us as we take a sneak peek at top-secret cheat codes and game enhancements at work. You too can be a part of Cheats in Action. Simply record your extraordinary gaming feats onto a standard video cassette and send it to the address that will appear on your screen after this message. The best video footage will feature on a future issue of PSI, with each winner receiving a fantastic Action Replay CDX cheat cartridge for PlayStation. Cheats in Action. Together, we'll blow games apart. PlayStation 2 releases here in the UK on the 26th of October. If you fancy being the lucky owner of one of these little beauties on day of release, plus £200 worth of games and accessories and a Vodafone football phone, you need to enter this issue's competition. We've got 3 prizes to give away, and one of them could be yours if you give the correct answer to the following question. Which actress has been chosen to play Lara Croft in the movie version of Tomb Raider? Is it A. Whoopi Goldberg, B. Joan Collins, or C. Angelina Jolie? If you think you know the answer, call the competition line now on 0906 8633 258 and follow the online instructions. You'll be asked your answer and for your name and address. Lines will close at midnight on Friday, the 21st of July. Winners will be picked at random by our computer and announced in the next issue of PSI. Calls cost 50p a minute at all times, so get permission from whoever pays the bills before you dial. Fittingly for an event staged in the home of Hollywood, E3, the world's biggest computer and video game show, boasted great games and glamorous girls. PSI brings you an exclusive In the Trenches show report with exclusive footage of what to expect on PlayStation 2 this year, plus full details of the next generation console's launch in the UK. PlayStation 2 was finally unveiled to the Western world at E3. Sony announced at its pre-show press conference that PlayStation 2 will be released simultaneously in the States and Europe on the 26th of October. Sony showed off dozens of PlayStation 2 games at its huge exhibition stand, including Gran Turismo 2000, Wipeout Fusion, Tekken Tag Tournament, Ready to Rumble Boxing 2, Formula 1 2000 and many others. PSI brings you an exclusive in-your-face look at the best games on show. Electronic Arts lineup had a strong PlayStation 2 flavour to it. A massive TV screen displayed a healthy dose of mainly sport-orientated games for the new platform. A notable exception is Theme Park World, where you can build your very own theme park from the ground up and manage everything from selling chips to creating the rides. Build a 5-loop roller coaster, then climb aboard yourself to experience your own creation in amazing 3D. FIFA 2001 takes full advantage of PlayStation 2's incredible power, delivering stunningly real graphics that even show the expressions on players' faces. Taking full advantage of PlayStation 2, Knockout Kings 2001 delivers true-to-life graphics with a staggering 10,000 polygons per boxer. Boxing champions like Lennox Lewis have stepped into what the game's creators call a cyber scanning machine to create perfect body and head replications. This is the most realistic boxing simulation we've seen. Tiger Woods' PGA Tour 2001 is drop-dead gorgeous on the looks front, and besides Tiger himself, all the other top pro golfers are also included. Snowboard Super X, or SSX for short, is a simulation of a new extreme sport known as border cross, which combines high-speed pursuit and big air tricks. This lightning-fast arcade racer makes cool borders look like a stroll in the park. The suave and sophisticated secret agent James Bond makes his PlayStation 2 debut in EA's interpretation of the blockbuster movie The World Is Not Enough. Looking strikingly like Pierce Brosnan, Bond shimmies and shoots his way through 10 movie-based missions. One of the most intriguing releases of the show was The Bouncer from Squaresoft, who are famous for their Final Fantasy series of role-playing games. PSI queued patiently to bring you a special film preview of this incredible PlayStation 2 title. The Bouncer is a cinematic action-adventure set in the future with realistic interactive environments. Squaresoft also unveiled plans for its PlayStation 2 online service, which will include multiplayer internet games, music that can be downloaded onto tiny Sony memory sticks, chat rooms and much more. Squaresoft's Final Fantasy X, the first Final Fantasy game to be released on PlayStation 2, will be playable online, but no launch date was given. Multiplayer 3D shoot-em-ups don't come any finer than Unreal Tournament. The PlayStation 2 version of this award-winning PC hit was unveiled at E3, with head-to-head and team-based battles taking place on screen. Oddworld Munch's Odyssey pits hero Munch and his clueless mate Abe against the full might of Oddworld's corporate power brokers and their legions of lackeys armed with outrageous weapons. Oddworld Munch's Odyssey mixes action, adventure, role-playing, strategy and simulation genres into one colourful and absorbing game. If you've always wanted to imitate Jarvis Cocker and bash Michael Jackson's face to a pulp, then Ready to Rumble Boxing Round 2 gives you the chance to do just that. For some bizarre reason, Midway's new beat-em-up for PlayStation 2 includes Wacko Jacko as a special guest celebrity boxer. The pasty-faced singer was motion captured and sound recorded so that his famous dance routines and distinct voice could be incorporated in the game. With its smooth-edged graphics and perfect polygons, Gran Turismo 2000 is looking good. And it'll have to be if it's to beat Namco's excellent Ridge Racer 5 to become PlayStation 2's top racer. No introduction is needed for the next game in our E3 show report. Tekken Tag Tournament, the long-awaited sequel to Tekken 3, will be top of every beat-em-up fan's wishlist this October. Tekken has evolved from a one-on-one bout to a full-on tag battle, with 2 characters fighting for each team. Futuristic racing game Wipeout, one of the finest titles on the original PlayStation, gets a full makeover in Wipeout Fusion. Wipeout Fusion features new ship physics, improved artificial intelligence, customizable spaceships, pilot personalities, special multiplayer weapons, and freeform tracks. The PlayStation 2 version of Formula 1 World Grand Prix 2000 promises to be the most realistic Grand Prix simulation ever. All the cars and circuits have been created using computer-assisted design data from official sources. This means that each vehicle consists of several thousand polygons. Everything's been put together with pinpoint accuracy, and all the cars are built to the exact specifications of the real-life Formula 1 teams. Developed by Video System and officially endorsed by the FIA, Formula 1 2000 will be out later this year. Given the glorious history of these fighting men, it seems only fitting that their adventures should be transferred to today's gaming media. A whole series of these games have appeared recently, the latest episode being Army Men Operation Meltdown, a release from 3DO. This game lets you take control of the Green Army as you battle to prevent the evil Tan forces taking over the world. It's a very good idea to have a run around the training camp first. It allows you to test your prowess with some of the equipment you'll encounter later in the game. There's a fair arsenal available to you as the missions unfold, and as well as movable equipment like mortars and flamethrowers, you can also commandeer jeeps, tanks and howitzers. On the downside, picking out the enemy against the landscape proves quite tricky. Binoculars are provided with a rather funky zoom action, but this doesn't detract from the fact that graphically this game's not all it could be, and until you're close up and personal, the other soldiers lack any definition at all. The camera views also hamper your fighting ability, and there's nothing more annoying than finding your view of the action obscured by a large tree or a palm frond. Move on to the gameplay though, and things seem to be a little better. Perhaps the most annoying thing about this game is that there are some brilliant moments when you realise that with a little bit more time and effort, this could have been a fantastic shoot-'em-up offering. Close quarter fighting with bayonets is exciting stuff, and hits on Tan soldiers are rewarded by chunks of plastic flying off them. Army Men should have been a lot better than this. It has a good theme, it's designed well, and provides some enjoyable moments. However, poor graphics and camera views spoil what should be a classic game of an age-old struggle. The launch of PlayStation 2 will no doubt bring with it an assortment of heroines for the future, and more of Lara. But if you can't wait that long for a virtual girlfriend, then don't give up quite yet. The Danger Girl team is coming, and they might just be about to give the Queen of Tomb Raiding a run for her money. For those not familiar with Danger Girl, here's a quick rundown. Not one, but 4 likely young lasses are involved here. Abby Chase is blonde, wears tight jeans and big boots. Sydney Savage is a raven-haired wild child who wears leather and carries a whip. Silicon Valerie bears more than a passing resemblance to Thelma of Scooby-Doo fame. And finally, there's the rather delectable Natalia, who's Russian and not too sure whose side she's on. Be careful how you approach them though, these are not your typical girls, as they're all extremely proficient with all manner of weapons, and are all secret agents for the Danger Girl team. Your missions and orders originate from Deuce, the girl's mysterious spymaster. For most of the game, you're in contact with base through Silicon Valerie, whose nickname stems from her skill with computers. The game is presented in a Tomb Raider-style camera view, interspersed with movie clips as events unfold. All the controls are well thought out, and a fairly standard format inventory allows you to carry different weapons and equipment. The similarities to Tomb Raider end when the gameplay starts. Sure, there are the usual problems to be solved, artifacts to be found, and missions to complete, but by and large, there's more shooting and less brain work. When the bad guys die, they often drop ammunition, keys, and other necessary items, so leaving anybody alive is never an option. Your gun aims itself to a certain degree, but the enemy don't stand around while you shoot at them, so you're liable to sustain damage during a firefight, and death is never far away. The scenery looks very impressive, and the game is big enough to keep you amused for a lengthy period of time. The characters move and interact very well, and the sight of Abby wiggling her way through the Costa Rican jungle should prove enough to keep you glued to the screen through the early hours and beyond. This game is in fact a scrolling platform beat-em-up, kind of a Streets of Rage, but with tricky platform sections thrown in to annoy you. Naturally, it's all in full 3D, but in some sections you could be forgiven for not noticing. The plot is about as weak as your average action film. Grandpa's been kidnapped, and there's some sort of special package that needs to be recovered. Basically though, you just have to progress through 3 levels in each of several different themed areas of the city and collect the red dragons for bonuses if you fancy it. The graphics are smooth and solid, but do look a bit basic compared to other recent games. The animation does compensate to some extent, but you know how shallow us gamers are these days. If it isn't pretty, we just won't buy it. The sound is competent. There are some dubious accents in the voiceovers and quite a bit of repetition, but it doesn't intrude and some of it's even funny. The levels are varied and interesting, and for the most part well structured, with lots of variety in the action. So technically, there isn't a lot to gripe about, although there isn't really anything to shout about either. Fortunately, the game does retain some of what made Streets of Rage such good fun to play, which is to say, there's a constant stream of inferior baddies for you to do in. Overall, it's a good solid arcade game, with just a few flaws that occasionally get in the way. Welcome to PSI, the most explosive guide to PlayStation games ever. Packed with news, reviews and previews, PSI lets you see the latest games moving, hear the people behind the games talking, and features the unique Action Replay CDX cheat engine that lets you blow the biggest PlayStation titles wide open every issue. So sit back and prepare to get this month's fix, courtesy of PSI. In this issue of PSI, we bring you the Colin McRae Rally 2 cheat code engine that'll have you gaming like never before. Brought to us courtesy of Code Junkies, we've got the most wanted cheat codes and enhancements, including Enable Turbo Boost Mode, Reduced Gravity Mode, and Mirror Tracks Mode. Plus, we've included over a dozen codes for you to blast open the original Colin McRae Rally game. We've also got cheats in action, real-life footage of the most incredible gaming situations ever seen. We talk to Argonaut about the long-awaited Alien Resurrection and take a hidden camera into the biggest game show in the world, E3. Plus reviews, previews and a look at what's new in the gadget world. And of course, your chance to win a PlayStation and games in our oh-so-easy competition. What are you waiting for? Gauntlet Legends is the all-singing, all-dancing 3D follow-up to the old top-down dungeon hack-em-up that used to swallow all our 50-pence pieces. Updates of arcade classics tend to appear quite regularly these days, and with widely varying success. Sometimes the games are just too old and too basic to survive a modern makeover, see Asteroids for example, and sometimes the update has little more than the name in common with the arcade original, i.e. Battlezone. Gauntlet Legends, though, seems to be a pretty good attempt at preserving the original themes and bringing them up to date. The essence of the game doesn't appear to have changed a great deal. Choosing one of the Warrior, Wizard, Valkyrie and Archer, you head off into various worlds and fight off hordes of enemy creatures, using your fired or thrown weapons and potions. The plot is a load of the usual generic fantasy nonsense about a Dark Lord and a handy collection of plot tokens that can be used to stop him. Basically, you're looking for runestones, obelisks and a few other important bits. The graphics are really rather attractive for the most part. Full 3D with quite a bit of gradient and a mostly overhead camera which occasionally swings round a bit to make sure you don't get hidden behind scenery, and annoyingly to confuse your sense of direction. The game world is divided into 8 or 9 different zones, which in turn are divided into several levels. Each zone has a distinctive graphical feel which tends to mutate as you progress further into the zone. My only criticism of the graphics is that the focus is too close. You can't see enough of the landscape around you to get your bearings, and with the camera swinging around, it's just impossible to keep track of where you are in the level. On a big twisty level, the only way to explore is to wander around at random and hope you stumble across useful things. The accompanying music is of a very high caliber. Highly atmospheric and appropriate, it really adds to the feel of the game. The gameplay is quite faithful to the original Gauntlet. If that's what you want, then Gauntlet Legends is a winner. Just don't expect an RPG or an adventure. Legends is a slick and entertaining arcade romp with fantasy trimmings. It might come as no surprise to hear that out of 10,000 Jedi in the entire Galactic Republic, you have been chosen by your peers and you now stand on the Jedi Council. For your first task, you've been entrusted with a mission of great importance. The Trade Federation is blocking shipments to the planet Naboo. In a desperate attempt to make things more interesting, you're sent to neutralize this incredibly terrifying threat, protect the interests of the Republic, and set up the plot for the next 2 merchandising opportunities. And that's about it. Hold me back, someone. You can play the game with any one of the following 5 characters: Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Mace Windu, plus non-entities Adai Galia and Ugly Mug Piu Kun. Each has different abilities and attacks and varies in strength and speed. Most important of all, each has a different coloured lightsaber. Don't expect any great depth though, as Jedi Power Battles is basically Jedi Knight Light, with most of the gameplay removed. What you're supposed to do is run around each graphically not that bad actually level, chopping into mincemeat all the various baddies who come at you. This assumes that you get to grips with the control system, which is a bit unwieldy to say the least. Although the game is viewed from a third-person perspective like Tomb Raider, only further out, the camera only moves around a set course, forcing you down a certain path, and you frequently end up out of shot on the edge of screen while a mildly irritated Tusken Raider lays the smackdown on you. With no control over the viewpoint, fighting is very hit and miss, and timing jumps, especially long jumps onto moving causeways and the like, is done more by luck than skill. Worse yet are the bosses, especially the big stompy mecha with the really long arms at the end of the very first level. He's really big, you're really small, the viewpoint doesn't rotate around, so you couldn't see what you were doing half the time. Not good. This really is a depressingly bog-standard arcade game from a company who usually put out far better games than this. It's the Phantom Menace game all over again. Colin McRae is back. This latest release from Codemasters is the long-awaited follow-up to the incredibly successful original, and must be one of the most eagerly awaited sequels ever. The first release defined rallying games for the PlayStation, but this sequel will be released into the middle of some stiff rallying competition. Can the Codemasters team reclaim the top spot? As it turns out, a more reasonable question would be, was it ever in doubt? What is on offer here is the most highly polished and playable championship rally game ever made for the PlayStation. A selection of tracks from 8 countries, all portrayed with graphics straight out of a holiday brochure, raced by a very creditable array of new and proven rally cars. Just in case all that sounds as if it's been done before, Codemasters have thrown in compelling split-screen racing, either vertical or horizontal, dual-track head-to-head contests, and an arcade race mode that would not look out of place as a separate release. Stop me if I'm overdoing it, but trust me, once you've played it, it's hard not to get excited about this title. Rally Championship mode is the main feature of the game and takes you from the wintry wastes of Finland to the arid deserts and plains of Australia. Winning races here unlocks new tracks and cars, including a rather fetching Mini Cooper, the Lancia Integrale and Stratos, and even an RS Cosworth. Finishing in the top 6 grants entry to the next stage of the rally, and so on. Graphically, it's difficult to fault this game. The cars look so wonderfully sharp that you could shave with them, and the replays that commence as soon as you've completed a stage are worth the money on their own. Exhausts flash and the dust billows out behind your car. The only disappointment is that spectators don't run for cover when you approach. Perhaps they have the right idea though. The graphics are truly spectacular and are enough to make you cancel your order for PlayStation 2. But the handling is where this game really shows its class. The cars respond exactly as you always dream they should, and whilst some of the bonus cars are a bit hairy to drive, as you're given a top selection to start off with, this is never a problem. The making of a good racing game though is doing it with a friend. It's here that the major changes from the original show themselves. For those group participation moments, it's hard to better the ball-breaking rough and tumble of the new arcade mode, especially in split-screen mode. You can play against a companion or any number of CPU-generated opponents, and in this mode the game changes character completely. A manic music soundtrack adds to the already impressive sound effects of whining turbos and squealing tyres, and the driving action is fast and furious with little room for niceties. If the arcade mode whets your appetite for competition, then bear in mind that the last stage of every rally is a head-to-head dual-circuit affair against another driver, and the variety of different multiplayer modes allows you to play this against another player as well. It would be customary at this stage to list a couple of gripes, but unfortunately, there isn't really much to gripe about. This is the off-road driving genre pushed as far as the current PlayStation will allow, and then just a little bit more. And you should buy it the moment it hits the store shelves. Ronaldo v Football takes the path of featuring only international matches, which presumably can't be exclusively licensed, although there's no World Cup, merely a remarkably similar competition with a different name, and the grounds are all fictitious. There are a decent number of national teams represented, though, from all over the world. The teams appear to have reasonably up-to-date player names, and the players have vaguely accurate appearances, although I imagine the developers were contractually obliged to have a bald Ronaldo, since he's endorsing the game. Anyone who's played a football game, not counting management, should be at home with the basics of Ronaldo v Football in about 5 minutes. The usual assortment of competition types are all available: quick match, league and tournament, etc. And there's a reasonable degree of in-game tactical adjustment possible, with substitutions and formation changes. Apart from that, it's all down to the quality of the presentation and the quality of the implementation. The graphics are reasonably decent, the menus are simple and workmanlike, and there are very few trimmings around the actual games, which is not really a bad thing. The matches themselves are competently depicted. The players are a bit blocky, but smoothly animated, and probably about as good as can be reasonably expected from the PlayStation. The range of animations is pretty impressive, and includes all the usual fripperies such as goal celebrations and disagreements with the referee. There are some nice graphical touches, such as the flash photography lighting up the players as they walk out onto the pitch, and some rather odd touches, like the lens flare that doesn't appear to be caused by any particular light source. The game itself, though, was actually not at all bad. The control system is set up well enough that it seems to guess what you want to do. There aren't really a lot of buttons involved, but the context determines the actual move played, and this will usually turn out to be the one you wanted anyway. The play area is the usual compromise between big players and showing enough of the field to be able to make passes. Players on the far side of the pitch can seem a little small, but you can also find yourself wondering if there's anyone upfield to pass to or downfield to cover. Ronaldo v Football is a solid game. There aren't too many frills, but the core game is playable and intelligent. No doubt it will sell pretty well. I expect there'll be 1 or 2 Euro 2000 games along shortly, which might offer some competition. But you could do a lot worse than Ronaldo v Football.
No green soldier ever won a war by melting for his country. He won it by making the tan soldier melt for his country. Robo Company incoming! Move out! Move out! Why don't you drop that gun and face me like a man? Because I'm the bad guy, that's why.